everybody, and welcome to this talk in Odoo Experience 2021. As this year the event is online, I guess that you might have another tab open here in your browser. So if this is the case, please close it and stay with me until the end of this talk because after my presentation, I will be glad to answer all your questions. My name is Lucas. I am business analyst at Odoo, and I'm also part of the team of manufacturing experts. And today we are going to talk about the future of engineering to order. But first, I have a question for you. Do you know what an analytic account is? I am sure that in your company you have an accounting department and they are all the time recording transactions, creating journal entries, organizing all information into different categories such as assets, liabilities, income, expenses, and so on. All this information is organized following a structure called the chart of accounts. In Odoo, we have a different structure, a part of the chart of accounts, which is known analytical accounting. And this is mostly used to have a more flexible cost control. Imagine in your company you have expenses and you want to see all of them divided by department. So you can use a cost center for that, right? But for some companies, it's important to see everything divided by project. And in the manufacturing world, this is known as engineering to order.
But Lucas, engineering to order. I thought this ETO was something like estimated time of, I don't know. What is it exactly? How does it work?
I will explain, but I think it's better if I confess something before. Because when I was child, my dream was to become an astronaut. But every time I was going to the playground with my friends and I was spinning that stuff, I was feeling dizzy and sick, so I decided to give up.
You gave up or you threw up?
Both. But here I am, and I'm still a big fan of astronomy. So why I'm telling that? Because instead of explaining the concept, I will give an example using rockets. So imagine that you have a company and you are producing rockets. So one day comes to you Elon Musk and he orders a rocket to go to Mars. Of course, it's not something that you have off the shelf. You need to create a project in order to understand all the requirements of this rocket. You need to have a team of engineers working on it in order to design and test, create prototypes, etc. So then once this rocket, the design of this rocket is done, you will finally start the manufacturing process. But imagine that in the future, Richard Branson comes to you and order a different rocket, just to take some millionaires to travel around the earth, like my friend here, Marcelo.
Oh, yeah. I would love to, Fabian, if you can give me a raise.
And then, of course, I cannot produce the same rocket as I produced before for Elon Musk. I need to create a new project to understand the requirements of this new rocket and then have my team of engineers working on it again. But in the end, I will produce a different rocket, even though we are talking about the same product. This is not a repetitive process, it's something that we produce specifically for each client following a specific purpose. But then, why using analytical accounting in manufacturing? If you are in this business, I understand the problem you have today. It's not easy to find and to put together all the costs since the project until the manufacturing process. Now in Odoo 14, you have the analytic account, and this is a feature that is in the accounting module, and this feature can be found in three different applications: in the project, purchases, and sales. But now, to make our life much easier, we are adding the manufacturing app in the loop. It means that in the bill of materials now, as soon as you design this new product, you can link the BOM with a project using this analytic account. And of course, all the manufacturing orders producing something from this bill of material will be linked to the project via analytic account. And you can navigate easily between both applications using this smart button that you can find in the upper right corner of the screen. But just to summarize again, I have projects, I have manufacturing, And then I will put everything together in this analytic account. The goal here is to see if I'm profitable or not. Then, in one hand, we have the revenue, my R&D project, which I can invoice using a fixed price, for example, and I have my final product. On the other hand, I have all my costs, and then I can have different sources, such as the bill of materials and all components that are included on it. I have my labor, all the workers in my shop floor working to produce my product. And I have also the timesheets. So all engineers or any people that worked for this project. So everything will be put together in order to have a 360 degrees cost recording. Now you can see in this analytic report in the accounting application, everything since the project until the manufacturing process. Everything in one place. This is amazing. So let's see how it works in the database. Okay, here in my database, I will explain the example of a company producing drones, not complex like a rocket, but it's still something that I need to understand the requirements before producing. Then I have this engineering to order process again. And let's imagine that this company has a client which requires a drone with a surveillance camera, okay? Just before I start the process, I will explain something important. Here in my employees app, I have two employees, Maria, my engineer, and she has a cost per hour of 50 euros. And I also have Mitchell, my tester, and he has a different cost per hour. This is important because when they start recording their timesheets, I will have a precise cost per each person. And then I have, of course, a more precise cost control. Then let's start this process from my sales app, creating a quotation to my client Sky Guardians. And in this case, I will request an immediate payment in order to start my project. In this case, my project will be conception and design of a drone with camera. And I will charge a fixed price of 1,000 euros for that. As soon as I confirm my quotation, turning it into a sales order, Odoo creates automatically the analytic account using the same number of my sales order and the name of my client, and also creates a project. So directly here from the sales application, I can jump into the project app, and I see here that I have all my tasks already created and assigned to each person according to their roles. So this is absolutely convenient. Then going back to my sales order, I will create the invoice to finally start my project. And as you can see, the analytic account is already here. I will confirm. And besides the journal entries created automatically for the accounting application, if I switch to my accounting app and I check here my report of analytic, I can see that I have my analytic account here and I have 1,000 euros as revenue for the moment. Now I am good to start working on my project, so I will switch back to my other screen and open the project application. As you can see here, I have a project following the same nomenclature, the sales order number and my client. And imagine that Maria, my engineer, she will log in Odoo and start working on this task. So I will move it to ongoing and she will record her timesheet. So today, let's imagine that she worked in the engineering process. And she will record 8 hours. Then the task is done. And my next person, which is Mitchell, my tester, will come here and record his timesheet as well. So Mitchell, working as tester, worked for 8 hours. Okay. For the sake of this presentation, I will keep it simple. Of course, the project would have much more tasks, but I will create only 4. And then what is important here, after they have recorded the timesheets, if I switch to my accounting application again and I check my analytic report, I can see that I have 2 new entries. The description of these entries are exactly what they added in their timesheets. And as I said at the beginning, I have 2 different costs because they have different salaries. For this moment, what is important to mention is I have a positive bottom line. So considering only the project, I have a bottom line of 280 euros, which is really good. But now, after the client has accepted this prototype or the project, I will start finally the manufacturing process. So then I will switch back here to my other screen. I will open the manufacturing app. And just before explaining the process itself, I will mention that I have only two work centers, okay? Again, just to keep it simple, one for the assembly and the other one for the welding. And each work center has also a cost per hour. In this case, the assembly has a cost per hour of 50 euros and my welding has a different one as 20 euros. So this cost is not of a specific employee. Here I am considering the salaries of all people working in this work center. So I have an estimation also considering other indirect costs like electricity and so on. So going back to my explanation, I need to come here and finally create a new bill of materials because I have a standard one for my drones, and this client asked for a drone with a high definition camera for surveillance, let's say. And then what I will do here is to duplicate this bill of materials, and I will add the component, which is my high definition camera, and say that I will consume it during my assembly operation. But the most important point here is to go to the miscellaneous tab and link this new bill of materials to my project. So I will just change here the version as well to add something more specific, like, okay, version 19 according to my sales order. And I have my bill of materials linked to my project. Now, when I launch my manufacturing order, and just for the sake of this presentation, again, let's assume that I have all the components in stock, so I don't need to trigger all the procurement process. I will say that I will produce my drone. As you can see, Odoo automatically fill the list of components that I need, considering the new one. And in the miscellaneous tab, I already have my analytic account. So I will confirm, plan in order to allocate my work centers, and I will finally start producing my drone. So the person working in the assembly work center will open the tablet view and check here the instructions, and they will start assembling the drone, taking the fuselage and then validating that it has been consumed because they are putting together with the rotor, and I will validate. Here I'm now adding the propeller, the remote control, and finally my high definition camera. And as soon as I finish my assembly operation, I see the list of all components that I used, and I will click here in Mark as Done. Now the person in the next work center, the welding one, is ready to start the work order. So again, using the tablet view, they can check the instructions, weld my drone, and I will finally have it finished. Each operation should take 1 hour, but I will not stay here 1 hour. I will just adjust the time in order to have my real duration according to the expected duration. And when I finish this manufacturing order, I can check here in my cost analysis. Everything that I consumed has a unit cost. So I can see that I consumed a total of 700 euros of components. And also all the time spent by my workers in the assembly and the welding work center are also recorded here according to the time versus the cost per hour, and I have 70 euros cost of operation. The total of my manufacturing process is then 770 euros. So keep that number in mind, because if I come back to my manufacturing order and I check this new button, the analytic account, I can navigate easily from manufacturing to accounting, and I can see that now all components are recorded here. And they have a tag, raw, from raw material, but we can understand as component as well. And they are all negative because they are costs. I also have the time spent by my workers in the welding and assembly process recorded as a cost, and they have the tag WC, which means work center. But now if I check my bottom line, I have a negative number, so this is not good. But we are still missing something. We need to sell the drone to my client, right? So I will go back to my sales application and finally create a new sales order, requesting the immediate payment to my client. And now I will selling my drone. And I can add here in the description, drone with camera. There is something really important here. Odoo automatically calculated the unit price, 847 euros. But from where this price came from? If we check here, I have a positive margin, so 77 euros, which is good. But in this case, I defined in my price list that I have a margin of 10% based on the cost of my product. So I had my cost of 770 euros, and Odoo is calculating automatically for me my sales price, making sure that I will have a positive result. The only thing that I need to do here before I finish my quotation is to mention that this process is linked to my project. And then when I confirm the quotation, turning it into a sales order, I need to ship this drone to my client. So I have this step of logistics. When I deliver the product to my client Sky Guardians, I'm good to go back to my sales order and finally create the invoice. And when I do that, you can see that I have the analytic account here. So everything is integrated. I confirm, and I can check that besides my journal entries, if I go back, I will switch here to my accounting app to check my analytic report again. I see the revenue from my drone recorded here. So for the moment, I have a positive bottom line, so which is really good. But let's imagine something, because my company is not specialized in installation of surveillance cameras, so maybe I can ask another company to help me. In this case, if I have a vendor bill from a company, let's say Surveillance Master, because these guys are really experts on installing cameras on drones, I will receive a bill from this company, let's say consultancy, and this bill is about 100 euros. And I just need to say that this cost belongs to my project. And then when I record this bill and confirm, I can check again my analytic report, and I see the final number of my project. Considering this last cost of 100 euros, I'm still positive. I have a bottom line of 257 euros, which is really good because I can see since the beginning, from my project until the end of my manufacturing process, and all landed costs that I have throughout this process, that I have everything integrated, and I can finally see if I have a profit or not. So this is what I have to present today. Thank you so much for watching. And now let's go to the Q&A session.
Wow, Lucas, Odoo really works. Look, I got my drone with a camera. That's amazing. How did you do that?
Hi everyone, and welcome to this Q&A session. And Lucas, thanks a lot for that presentation.
My
It
pleasure.
was very informative, and our guests asked a lot of questions. And let's see, are you ready for that?
Yeah, of course. Let's go.
Sure. So Nathan asked, can you pull the cost of the tasks from other areas in the system?
Indeed, the idea of using the analytic account is to retrieve or to pull the costs from different areas. So yes, Nathan, you can do that definitively. And especially now in V15, we have the possibility to pull the costs from the bill of materials, which is really important.
All right. And the second part of the question was, would it be able to template the cost for welding and assembly from user or operation costs instead of manually adding it?
Not exactly per user, but when it comes to manufacturing and we use the work centers, we have an estimation. We are using indirect costs, so we cannot precise the cost per user. So in general, all the users or all the employees working in that work center will be considered in order to get the cost from that specific work center. So we cannot be that precise, but we can have an estimation and retrieve the costs from that work center.
All right, perfect. I also took some questions for myself. So when you have like many projects in parallel, how do you use an analytical account for an optimal cost control?
Yeah, it's an important question because what we have now in V14 is that we retrieve the costs when we record the vendor bills. And when we have multiple projects in parallel, it's not always easy to split this cost into these different projects. Because imagine that you have 3 projects in parallel, and then you need to buy the same component for the same 3 projects. You will not create a purchase order with 3 different lines. So usually you will group in one line with quantity 3. But then when you receive the vendor bill, you have the opportunity only to record the cost for this same line. Now in V15, it's better because we don't need to retrieve or to record the cost from the vendor bill, but we can uh, record this cost when we are processing the manufacturing order specifically from each project. So it's even better to see precisely from where your costs are coming from.
All right, thank you. And we got a question from Martha. If we have a project that is paid in partialities, how am I going to see my accountability in that case?
Again, I think instead of considering the partialities or the installments of the payments, the most important thing here is to record the cost of these components when you are consuming them. So this is the main purpose of using the analytic account in the bill of materials or in the manufacturing order. But of course, depends of each situation. So sometimes if you don't have projects in parallel or depending of the business need, we can still use the feature of recording these costs from the vendor bill so you don't follow exactly the moment where you are consuming the components, but you create the analytic entries according to each installment or each payment you are paying to your supplier.
All right. And do you have currently like clients that are interested in using this new feature?
Yeah, we have one project in Germany,
Oh, great.
and we decided to wait until V15 just to take advantage of this fantastic feature.
Oh, perfect. So we're getting a lot of demand for that, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Great. Um, when you add analytic account on the bill of material and you do it at the same, you do the same thing on the work center, which one would prevail?
Uh, in this case, the analytic account defined in your manufacturing order will prevail because this is, let's say, the lowest level. But of course, if you want to uh, keep your bill of materials empty and use the work center to put your analytic account, we can still work with this concept, and then you can control your working process from the work center instead of the bill of material.
All right, perfect. And during the presentation, I saw that you were creating different sales orders. So my question to you is, can you do the entire process in one sale order?
Yeah, we can create only one sales order, and then after you finish the project and when you are going to invoice the final product, you can just modify the sales order, add a second line, and then confirm. Or do you create again the same document, which is the delivery order, and you can invoice the client from this second line. But you can also, a tip, you can use the field service app, and as soon as you are using the project task, you can add the final product directly from the task, and Odoo will add it directly in this same sales order. But depends of the business. In this case, I was explaining a process where you already have one sales order. So instead of modifying something that was previously validated by the client, you can just create a second one and have a second invoice from there.
All right, perfect. Do not hesitate if you have like more questions. Lucas is right there to answer them. I can see that we don't have any more questions. I think that we covered everything. So, do we have any more
I think
questions?
we have one more from Marta.
Oh, yes. So can we have several reports that are compared between them?
The report is still the same, the analytic report in the accounting application. You can use maybe the pivot table to create some columns and compare between months. But in terms of reporting, the functionality is still the same. We are adding here only a different source to record these analytic entries.
All right. Perfect. I think that can be a wrap, unless you have any more questions. Well, thanks a lot, Lucas, for your time. Really, the presentation was very insightful for me, and I learned a lot. So thanks a lot for that.
My pleasure.